It is week 3 of the college football season. Can you believe, lads, that we are, every schedule is different for each team in terms of games, weeks, etc. But we're like a quarter of the way through the college regular season this week. This is a touch scary. There's not enough games. There's not enough at the end of the year what we need. We'll have a bowl game special in Tralee. I think I'm going to plan my hotel in Daire that he's going down to Kerry. We're going to do something for the bowl weekend. Leave it with me, boys. Maybe on Christmas week. Who knows? Michael McQuaid, Daire Carger, Mr. Conall Diggin also. Daire, starting off with you, my friends, the king of Armagh. I see too much of Armagh these days. Budding college football scene in Armagh. Can I just first off, Daire, before bringing, can I just thank everyone? Like, this podcast, the last time I checked, was 17th in Ireland for football. So this is pretty cool. People like college football in Ireland, Daire, and it's great to see you. It's great to see you. It's great to chat to you again. How do?
Yeah, all good. Going back to college myself this weekend. So so we're really getting in the college atmosphere. Fortunately, Queens don't have the 100,000 seater stadium or anything of that nature. It'd be good if we had it over here.
Well, they have the PEC.
It's not far off.
Jordanstown's better. Well, Ulster. Talking about better universities. I'm joking. I'm just, folks, for people listening, I'm just really bitter 15 years on and I never got into Queens. Conall, we've got a Queens man up here. We've got a lad from Kerry and Galway here. Are people in the south back to college quicker than people in the north? Is this even a discussion point for college football?
Well, Galway has been back a week earlier than like everywhere else. So we've been back. I'm in my second week now, but all the other lads in like Limerick and all the Dublin places in Cork, they're only coming back now. And then first years don't even start till next week. So
what people don't know about this podcast is that when the actual Gaelic football college season starts up, this is just going to become a Sigerson Cup podcast, and we're not actually going to talk about American football whatsoever.
As a 32-year-old man with no ties to universities anymore, I look forward to presenting that and just sitting and waiting. Maybe we could do it for the McCrory Cup as well. Who knows? Yeah. Alma mater. Right, gents. Let's get into it. I was going to start off with myself in terms of things to talk about from last week for week 2, but I feel like what I'm going to talk about is going to be what Conall Diggin's going to talk about, but also it goes into our first topic. So, Daire, like, that was a great week of college football. A lot of upsets, some big statement wins. I'll just start off by saying this. How underwhelming was the crowd in Tuscaloosa? There was more people in the mall in Armagh than there was behind the ESPN College Game Day crowd.
Yeah, I saw that. I know. I think they sort of missed the ball not going to Colorado this week. They'll be there this coming weekend for the rivalry game, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it's interesting. They had a really cool opening to it. Rhys Davids is really, really good at like making it into a big deal. But then there's this drone shot of like park that must be about 10% full. I suppose people, if you're from Alabama, like you just don't really care about game day anymore. It's there every second or third week, like. So yeah, I mean, we've disappointing, but they're in the right place this week for sure in Boulder.
They are indeed. We'll talk about Boulder in a little second. Apart from if this becomes a Buffs podcast and Conall Diggin, his highlight is about the Buffs. But have you anything else to say, Conall, before you say anything about Prime?
I think actually what's really interesting about the whole game day thing is that I believe CBS or whatever one of the other ones are, they do the big noon kickoff, and they were supposed to be in Illinois this weekend, but then they've changed to Colorado. So both like organizations,
they're both there this week,
yeah, which is, you know, I wonder. I guess the whole thinking behind that is if your rivals are there, you may as well go there as well. I mean, we'll see who gets the bigger turnout. I'd say it's probably going to be ESPN College Game Day. But some really big results this weekend, just all around. Like,
yeah, I was going to talk about the Buffs beating Nebraska and how good that defense was, but we'll talk about them going into it. I guess for people listening to this, I've actually had people WhatsApp me we need to talk about certain colleges. We'll have this discussion, boys, off camera. It'll be grand. We'll talk about it in week 4, 5, 6. Thanks for listening, folks. That can only be a good thing. Like, obviously, Texas beating Alabama is big. It was a great week, and it's great to have it back again, and excited for week 3, man.
Yeah, and that was, I've said it a few times now, that was my big storyline at the start of the season, was this Alabama-Texas game. I didn't think Texas would win it. I'm now 0-2 in our weekly predictions thing, which is just brilliant. But I think that was just a real shocker and a classic, college football. That's what college football's all about. That their game there. So looking forward to what should be a spicy mid-season now with teams like Texas who aren't exactly your traditional just blow out everyone every given week. Like Texas are susceptible to losing a couple of games, so it's interesting to see these very top teams look beatable.
Mandatory sponsorship segment. We are bringing Jeff Reinbold around Ireland, Dublin, Belfast, Derry, Cork, Limerick. 5 dates in January. Going to be mad crack. Will Conall Diggin make an appearance at the Cork or Limerick one is a big question. Will we make Dara Carragher drive to Derry to stand up in a potential theatre and shout, "I'm a Derry girl"? Time will tell, but we'll see what happens. Home field apparel. Use code Ireland for 15% off your first purchase. I am literally looking at the Clemson t-shirts right now. I feel bad. I'm not usually this unprepared, boys, in terms of doing all that stuff, so bear with me. Maybe like week 5 it'll be sent. However, yeah, come to Jeff. Jeff has a bit of crack. Let's jump into week 3. We're going to look at, not to be boring and to pick the same teams again, but I feel like you need to pick, Dar. You have to pick and have to talk about Colorado, who are now 2-0, and the fact that their defense came up well last week, and against TCU in week 1 they didn't have any quarterback sacks or tackles for loss. In week 2, in Nebraska, against Nebraska they had 6. They go up against CSU this week, the Rocky Mountain Classic or whatever the hell they call it in Colorado. I should know the answer to this on the basis that I'm a Broncos fan, but I tell you what, I know one thing: they hate each other. The Buffs call it like CU look at CSU as a lesser university, but like Queens and Jordanstown, actually, like a wee bit like that there. But the funny thing is, like, I guess the expectation this week is for the Buffs home game, Folsom Field. I'm gonna double check that. I'm nearly certain isn't Folsom Field.
Yeah, it's a home game. Yeah,
that game used to be played in Empire Field. I don't know, Conall will talk about this in a second, but it used to be played in Colorado in Denver, and they're now playing at the Folsom Field. So the atmosphere is going to be electric. Interested to see just can they bring it back on the offense a bit for the Buffs. For Colorado State University, they rank 90th in college football in total yards per game. So I am intrigued, Dara, to see how they put it up. But this could be one of those games where this is a young team. It's a team where a lot of new players are here. There's a lot of expectation. And yes, Coach Sanders keeps talking about the fact that nobody believes in them, but maybe CSU are sitting there this week going, nobody believes in us. Let's go out and wreck them. Let's go out and shock them. Very unlikely. You expect CSU. You would expect CU to go 3-0, but should be a decent game, and obviously it's going to be heavily televised as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. These teams are now getting a really unique chance to broadcast themselves on a national level because absolutely everybody's watching Colorado every single week. So there for Nebraska, that was a brilliant opportunity for them to earn back a little bit of respect that they've lost over the last couple of years. And well, they failed miserably, but it's a similar opportunity for Colorado State now this week. This is a game where I think we'd all be very disappointed if Colorado lost. Like going into this whole massive hype surrounding they're going to play Oregon in 2 weeks, it would just be that's setting up to be an absolute classic, and that'll be the biggest game that week, and it would just be really, really disappointing for them to slip now. They probably shouldn't fall a hurdle as lowly as Colorado State, but like you keep going back to saying it's a program that went 1-11 last year, and I know that they don't have the same players in place, but any given Saturday, as it's been dubbed by Josh Pate of 24/7, and it's his tour for this season. I mean, it should be Colorado's game. This should just be them driving the point home that they're here as a legitimate contender, and anything less than that, we'd be disappointed.
Conall, who in the hell thought it was a good idea to put a game on at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning? That's all I have to say about this game.
And like they're doing this to like the most exciting team in like the country. I understand like over in America, this is like prime time type stuff, but right. Hey, like it's a worldwide sport. Like we're trying to prove that, like, and they're cutting us off.
Like there's prime time, right? and like
There's
Sunday
plenty
night
of a
football starts at
bedtime.
1:20 a.m. in the NFL. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like this should be a good matchup. The like Colorado State, they've only played one game so far this season. They had their bye week last week, and they played a Washington State team who actually just beat Wisconsin. So now they're ranked instead of Wisconsin, that was a pretty big upset that happened this week. And it should be fairly straightforward for the Buffaloes, to be honest. I mean, they have basically everything to to beat pretty much nearly anyone. And if they don't win this game, like as Dara said, it would be a massive slip up and be a shame for them to slip up now. I did also just want to put in that if people are getting sick of us talking about the Buffaloes, you'll have to wait probably another 2 or 3 weeks,
2 weeks.
because they play Oregon and then they play USC. So I don't see them falling out of the running order in the next 2 weeks.
Well, as we said previously, like obviously appreciate people listening, and like the thing is, this is charting, and we've only one episode a week, so this is awesome. Like genuinely, folks, thank you all so much. Really cool. Like this is the highlight in my career. I mean it, boys. So I'm buzzing for this. Now, from talking about Buffaloes to Gamecocks, can't beat watching Gamecocks, boys. South Carolina Gamecocks, who are 1-1 in the season, are going to Athens, Georgia, Saturday, 8:30 p.m. IST or 3:30 p.m. normal time if you live in the States. Playing Georgia. They lost. South Carolina lost to North Carolina in its opening game. It's a 3-point underdog in Charlotte. They took out massive frustrations last week. 17-point favorite in Furman. I mean, like looking at Georgia as well, Dara, they absolutely destroyed Ball State 45-3 last week. But you're looking at teams that are both sort of well rested because they're not competitive games in that sense for them. It's a decent matchup, but I mean, like Georgia are going to have too much, surely, way too much.
Yeah, it's one of it's probably the most lopsided game we'll talk about here. But I did want to include Georgia in this podcast because we haven't hit them yet, really. Number one team in college football and massive favorites to win it all again for the third year in a row. Biggest eyes to be on this game, probably Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback. This is going to be his first legitimate defense he'll face this season. He's looked okay so far. I mean, he doesn't have a pile to do when everyone around him is built like the largest 19 or 20-year-old you've seen in your entire life. So if you're focusing on the draft in this one, Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end, he's the best tight end in college football. He's probably top 10 prospect for this upcoming season. So there'll be eyes on him, obviously. In terms of the matchup itself, maybe Conall will hit a wee bit more on it, but just as a whole, this is a Georgia team that shouldn't have too much difficulty dealing with South Carolina.
Because Conall, like as Dara said, like you're looking at a team in their last 3 games, or if it had a 3-game run of winning against South Carolina, they've got a margin of difference of, I think it's 32 points. I haven't written that. 32.3 points per game. They've scored at least 40 points in these games. So this game could be over by the start of the second quarter.
Yeah, and I think what really stands out to me is so far this season, like South Carolina have not been able to run the ball at all. And it was kind of surprising, I think, in the first game, because last season, like run defense was a massive problem for North Carolina. And then a lot of people came into this year saying, okay, I think they're going to be much improved. And then they absolutely shut down the South Carolina running game, only allowed, I believe, about 40 yards rushing, which was insane. And then last week, they didn't have much luck against Furman. Now, they are a team who much prefers to throw the ball. And if you have Spencer Rattler, that's going to be, your main outlet, your main thing to do. But you can't see them winning, especially against the Georgia secondary that has Javon Bullard and Kamari Lassiter, who are, big draft prospects and could get drafted next year. You can't expect to just throw the ball, 40 times and come out with a victory. Like that's just not going to happen. I also wanted to point out that Georgia currently has a 20-game winning streak, and this game is at home, and they have a 19-game home winning streak. So I don't see them. I see that by next week getting to 21 wins, and like it's really. I'm as Dara said, I'm really interested to see the Georgia team, because so far no one has really, I guess, taken a hold of what we thought this team would be just yet. Everyone, like, it's been everyone's had a certain amount of rushes. No one has more than 8 catches, I believe, on this team. No one has more than 20 rushes so far this season for them. So we'll see maybe if they try and lean on some of the guys a bit more coming into this week.
Yeah, I guess like will we have our bet of the week, or like our not our bet of the week, but will we do like our pick where it's like we'll choose the handicap here? I'm gonna say Georgia minus 25.5. Is that?
Yeah, I would lean Georgia minus 25.5 to in Georgia. Yeah.
Conall, do you want to go mad and say 30.5?
Yeah, do I just have to I mean, I'm currently 1-1, so it's only Daire with some risk, I guess.
I haven't been to like I'm gonna have to watch back and check. I haven't made like
I think I watched the first week back. I don't think you put in a name in the first week.
Didn't want to.
Yeah.
I can't.
Scared.
I can't. Like did you know what the video file will still be there? Look, at the end of the day, if I win, everyone's coming to the Moy anyway, so it's 100%. It's 100%. You ever been to the Moy, Conall?
No, sure. I've never been like anywhere north.
Have you ever been in the Moy?
That's the most random college football question you're gonna get. Sean Capner's in the Moy. Right, anyway.
Hang on, I'll go plus 30. I'll go plus 30 just to.
Well, do you know what? I'm gonna say 32.5 then. Why not?
That's wild.
That is wild. But you know what? It's college football, boys. 10 o'clock Saturday is Washington, MSU, Michigan State University. Washington, I think, are the 8th ranked team in the States. We're not going to talk about it, but former Colorado coach Mel Tucker, who is the current coach of MSU, is currently suspended. And we're not even gonna go into information on that. Google that if you need to. One of the things I will say, Dara, about Mel Tucker is I've seen what he's done over the years with certain teams. His focus and the way that he's really built Michigan State over the last few months especially is forgetting about the opponent within 5 minutes. We're on to Washington. He has these lads drilled in to not even celebrating the blowout victory against a mediocre college. Straight up looking at this game. And the funny thing is for Washington, they're going to have a guy, Gary Bernard, who entered the transfer portal for MSU last year, coming into this game. So there's going to be a few interesting faces that have been there. I guess the big question, and it's the elephant in the room, is how much of an impact will Mel Tucker's suspension have on Michigan State? Will it be a situation where they just fall apart in the sense of it's just not there anymore because he's not there? Will they have a lack of confidence? They, at the time of writing, or the time of recording, they were 14.5-point underdog, I think, against Michigan. Non-conference matchup. Do you think the suspension plays a huge factor into this, in the sense of it really writes off Michigan State's chances, or do you think it'll be a situation where they play for the coach without going into information on the current situation, because your boy can't afford a legal bill?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question as to how important a college football head coach is, and are they more important than an NFL head coach on the sidelines? We talked earlier about Jim Harbaugh and how he literally could be away on his holidays and Michigan would just be destroying everyone at the minute.
I don't mean to cut over you. This weekend he was moving the chains. He was like the chain man for a youth football game this weekend. That's what he was doing.
So yeah, he's out there completing side missions. The other Michigan head coach will just not dwell on that one for too long. But yeah, I think this was a game that it's a risky game for Washington, considering they have they're my pick to go to the playoffs. They're my number 14 in my predictions at the start of the season. I think it's sort of similar, maybe to a lesser degree, to what Wisconsin did last week, and an almost direct flip. Wisconsin traveled up to an unranked Washington State last week and lost to like a sort of borderline, not ranked, not maybe not top 30, but 40 to 50-ish team in college football. That's a similar case happening here. Now, Washington have destroyed two teams of similar quality in Boise State and Tulsa so far, so that definitely plays into their favor. But I think two players that I like in this one are obviously Michael Penix Jr., the Washington Heisman candidate quarterback, and also Romeo Oduns. He is a senior wide receiver. Could have went to the draft last year. Probably would have been a third round draft pick or so. But he's really boosted his stock this season. He's looked like one of the best receivers in college football, and could really, really see himself getting called early in the draft in a few months.
It's an interesting matchup, and there's plenty of big names there, as Dara's mentioned, Conall. Like, do you think Mel Tucker not going to not be in there for reasons that we'll not talk about? Obviously, is a massive issue, or are you happy enough in terms of he can just move the chains like Jim Harbaugh somewhere else and then get on with it? But like, at the same time, you have to still go out and play a game of football. Do you know, like, and that's happened. That situation for those players has happened out of nowhere. Do you know, and it is different. You know, it's all speculation at the moment, but it's very different to Jim Harbaugh going to a bowling alley during COVID. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, it's even talking about it now, I feel kind of weird, because I'm like, I don't want to say something that's gonna mess anything up for us or for them or for whatever. But I do think, as Dara said, like, it does come down to how important is a college head coach. And I mean, like, they paid Mel Tucker, what was it, like 90 million for the next 10 years, something like
95,
that. Yeah, 95 million for the next 10 years. Like, that's crazy money. And that was after only one winning season with them as well. They went 11-2 thanks to Kenneth Walker, you know. And it's a difficult situation. I would have to pick Washington in this. Like, I think their team is really talented. I think, honestly, if I didn't have USC making the playoffs, they would have been, you know, they'd definitely be in like the top 10, I think, by the end of the season. You know, this whole team works really well. You know, two players Dara mentioned, Michael Penix and Oduns, both gonna, you know, get drafted this year pretty highly, you know, in the first two or three rounds at least. And then there's actually a really good D lineman, Braylon Trice, who's just kind of like one of those guys who, you know, they're not maybe the elite like athlete type guys, but he's technically like one of the most sound defensive linemen in all of college right now, and he's probably going to be a first round pick. So I'm really interested in this matchup. I think it's more a case of how the MSU players respond to this. I mean, it's kind of been struck on them, and will it be a kind of a case of, look, let's kind of prove everyone and be like, this is our team, you know, like, this guy doesn't represent us? Or will it be a case of, you know, will they use it maybe as an excuse if they do end up losing? I think that would be an interesting way to kind of look at this next week.
I think you boys have diverted everything there professionally and beautifully, and Pro Football Ireland has no affiliation with the NCAA or the Big Ten. The Big Ten is improving to 18 teams next season, and when you look at how far MSU have almost fallen in that sense, and where they were, and you've mentioned it there, at that 95 million contract, Conall, 11 game winning season, they're in a situation now where it's like that team is unrecognizable. It's going to get harder for them. They're the 49th ranked team for the 2024 roster in college football. So it's a big week for them.
They don't even really have anyone on their team who's of a real NFL quality coming into the draft next year either, which is, you know, for a big, you know, university like them, you should at least have, you know, 2 or 3 guys kind of nearly every year coming up, but they really they don't have anyone. Like, everywhere I looked, you know, just guys coming out of the draft, I couldn't find anyone. And they lost probably the guy who would have been in Keon Coleman. He left in a transfer to Florida State. So it's not looking great for them. And they've relied a lot on the transfer portal as well.
Yeah. Well, let's see. The last game we're going to talk about is Tennessee, Florida, midnight, Sunday morning. So you could technically, boys, watch that and then watch Colorado. I can't wait to wake up on Monday morning or Sunday morning with 1,800 WhatsApps and thinking these boys and their sleep schedules. I'm very, very jealous. Great game. Tennessee ranked 11th. You know, you're playing the Florida Gators. You're going into the Swamp. Tennessee haven't won in the Swamp since 2015. They were last favourite to win in 2015. They haven't won since 2003. But you boys weren't born the last time they won in the Swamp. Like, and you're both fully grown men now. Do you know what I mean? Like, boys, that's a long time ago, and that's all I'll say. The Gators opened the season a few weeks ago with a 24-11 loss against Utah, but bounced back against McNeese last week. Tennessee won 49-13 against Virginia. And then also didn't play great in the 30-13 win against Austin. I had to Google who Austin P were. I had never heard of them in my life. Like
classic week 2 Tennessee where there's Austin P fixture that is just so college football in September.
The thing is, like, you're playing that sort of team there, and then you're going up against Florida. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think, Dara, out of all the games we've talked about this week, this is the closest one, and I'm going to take Tennessee to lose against Florida. I think Florida is going to beat Tennessee at the weekend. I'm going to stick my neck out here and just have a bit of crack. Like, obviously, Tennessee need to be better and get better, but why not? Like, we've seen what happened last week with Bama and Texas. Why can't Florida go in and beat them this week?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest. Home field is such a massive change in this game. If this game was in Tennessee are maybe they could be up as 17 or 20 point favorites. They're only favored by 7 in Florida. Like, it's a classic. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is just an electric stadium. It's one of the ones that I would have on my bucket list of going to a college football game. It just is really, really unique in everything about it, and they've got won't back down this thing there. It's just sort of really one of the cooler scenes of college football. But in terms of the actual game, surprised to see Tennessee only as a 7-point favorite in this one, but it's such an unknown Florida side, because we knew coming into the year they weren't ranked. But like, that's very uncharacteristic of Florida. They're traditionally a really good team. They haven't really took a step back in recruiting. They haven't been great under Billy Napier, but they've been fine. You would have still pegged them to be ranked, especially with Graham Mertz, a quarterback, transfer over from Wisconsin. The jury's again is still out on him, but we've seen these college quarterbacks struggle in one place, transfer, and with a few years of experience, find massive improvements in their second landing spot. So I'm interested to see where this Florida team comes. They're not going to be overly optimistic after what happened in week 1, and then Utah, who beat them comfortably in week 1, almost come as close as it possibly could to losing against Baylor there this week. And so, I mean, that's not going to bode well for confidence in Florida. As on the Tennessee side, they've just kept rolling, they haven't missed a beat. They've Joe Milton, the quarterback, who has been a great replacement for Hendon Hooker so far. I feel like it's a tough one to call, and I don't hate the Florida upset pick in this one. I think that Tennessee wins it, and I don't think this is a blowout of any proportion. I think it's going to be a close game.
Conall, I was born in 1991. 20 years before that. That was the last time Tennessee was ranked and Florida was not going into this game. That's a long time ago, Conall, because, like, see, I almost go through the whole podcast by mixing the names up. But that's, Conall, that's a long time ago, mate. I mean, 20 years before I was born.
Yeah, like, that's actually kind of a crazy stat, because when you consider...
It's mental.
There's been times where, like, both haven't been good, and one has been good, one hasn't been good for, like, in the last 20 years. And, like, surely there would have been some early season kind of upset type thing. That's actually, I wish I had that stat. But I guess going back to, I mean, like, Tennessee, like, yeah, they I think last season with Hendon Hooker getting injured, it allowed Joe Milton to actually come in and, play a couple of games. I mean, the last 2 or 3 games of last season. So it did kind of help last season, and coming into this year, he just kind of keeps playing the way he has been playing. Now, to be fair, not against the highest of quality opposition. And I think I would definitely favor them in this matchup. But I don't think there will be an upset here, even going into this thing. I just haven't been really convinced by Florida. Like, they don't really have anything that would tip me over the edge to maybe put it in their favor, other than, like, the home field advantage. Like this, and for an offense as well, as one of those, look at this read. This is your read. Don't go off this read. You throw it to this guy no matter what type offenses. Usually those, like, don't run the ball too well, but, like, Tennessee runs the ball extremely well. Like, they have Jalen Wright and excuse me. And Jabari Small both have over one has over 200 yards, and then Jabari Small has over 150 yards this year. So they're pretty good at what they do already. And they have a tight end in McCallan Castles, which is actually a great name. They also have a wide receiver called Squirrel. Squirrel, like his first name is Squirrel.
No, it's not. Easy.
Yeah, that's down as his first name. I don't know if it's one of those like Kool-Aid McKinstry like nickname where like you just have to call me this type jobs. But that's what he goes by, Squirrel. And yeah, I think they'll definitely win this. Like Florida couldn't put up a winning season last year, even with Anthony Richardson, who was a top 5 pick. Graham Mertz, as Dara said, is very highly rated, but hasn't really proved anything since getting into college. So yeah, I think, Florida is one of those teams where I looked at their schedule and they're not bad. They're playing enough bad teams to get 6 wins, but they play enough good teams to not get like over 8 wins is basically the way I can put it.
And just to go on that Squirrel thing before we do wrap up here, boys, Marquarius Malik Squirrel White. There you go.
There's a player for Georgia called Lad McConkey.
Yeah, lad with 2 D's. Yeah, really Irish sounding.
That sounds like my wife when she says hello, lad. She's from Fermanagh. Just to wrap up here, we just in terms of games we haven't talked about very quickly. Number 2, Michigan are playing Bowling Green. Maybe Jim Harbaugh could take a few of the players bowling.
Let's hope that Michigan can strike. Am I right? Bowling Green.
When's a minute silence? Is that before or after the game for Jim?
I mean, it's the last game. It's the last game of the suspension. So,
Florida State at Boston College, Texas, Wyoming, Ohio State, Western Kentucky, Penn State, Illinois, Washington, and Michigan State. We talked about Notre Dame are advertised on Sky Sports as playing Michigan, but it's Central Michigan.
Great
Shame on you.
Also, in them games you mentioned there, it's not going to where it's at, but I'm picking Illinois to beat Penn State. Shush.
I think that's a really good matchup. Like Illinois' defense is
5 o'clock our time as well.
Yeah, get on that one. Watch it be like 35-0 at halftime now. Have to say.
There's the TikTok reel. A couple ones to finish off. Bama playing South Florida, Utah, Weber State, Oregon, Hawaii is an interesting one. It'll probably be on about 5 a.m. our time. Kansas State, Missouri, LSU, Mississippi State, MISS, ISS, IPPI, Duke, Northwestern. Forgot Northwestern's still the football team, and Oklahoma, Tulsa. If we didn't talk,
they haven't existed since playing in Dublin. They
haven't won since. That's such a great stat. Like, imagine that's been on for years. Like, that would genuinely be 10 out of 10. Like technically,
the Dublin curse.
Well, yeah, like it could. Well, big shout out to the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, but like technically, Pat Fitzgerald, like, may never coach again. His last win could be in Dublin, which is mad. Seeing to flip that round, seeing College Football Ireland at the Georgia Tech game on the weekend. Awesome. Looking forward to that game next year. We'll certainly pump it whenever we get the chance. But for now, these boys need to get back to their NFL talk. I know Dara is going to go cry with the Broncos, and I am too, because the Commanders will probably beat them on Sunday. And
you got the wrong name again, Michael.
Oh man,
yeah,
I was really happy about what happened this weekend. So
do you know what? Like, look, we are 36 minutes into this podcast. So if you're listening to this, you're a loyal listener, and I don't make, because I know people suffer from this. I am convinced, boys. Like, I'm 32 years of age. I'm telling you now, get your sleep, because I think I'm gonna have dementia, like 100%. Like, I can't remember people's names. Like I literally. So Conall, like, right, Conall, you're like, look, hopefully you're not crying on Sunday. Dara's flying. Like, I mean, the last time the Green Bay Packers didn't have a quarterback, I was 1 year old, and it looks like Jordan Love's going to be flying. So we got college football Saturday, NFL Sunday, packed on Pro Football Ireland. Appreciate you boys as always. I'll drop the socials in the comments, and maybe we can start like a Telegram channel, because some of the memes I'm getting sent on a Saturday evening is mad. Can I just say one more thing before we go? I miss the Barstool live streams. Maybe I just sound like really immature here, but I'm missing them. I need them back. Are they still alive? Do you boys know? I'm just asking this generally on the podcast.
Never been the biggest Barstool watcher, but I think they're gone for good. Yeah, just I think mad enough.
I miss it badly. Maybe we could start at, like, imagine Guinness, sofas, all these TVs. Maybe that's a chat off camera for next year. We'll see the crack. But for now, home field apparel, code Ireland, 15% off. We'll be wheeling in the ears this weekend with Dara. Shout out to Conall for that reference. And we'll chat to you soon on the PFI College Football Show. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. It literally, well, it doesn't really put food on the table, but it helps. Chat to you soon, folks, for week 4 next week.